Say anything to anybody?
Hello.
Hello.
Where is this leading? You already said it. You
Yes.
feel like you're being corralled. You are being corralled.
We are, in my opinion, absolutely. And when I say that sometimes in whatever passing or certain casual conversation, some people kind of agree, but some don't, and they're like, well, what are you talking about, man? What are you, a tinfoil hat guy? I mean, it's like, well, don't you feel that way a little bit? I mean, just intuitively.
Yeah, and what I try to focus on, like when we talk to Jim Willie, right? Jim talks about the Q and the white hats and I mean that's all fine and good. If that stuff's going down, great. I hope it's true that there's this battle going on, but we have to be focused on what we can do, and that's why what I've always said to you is you have to focus on yourself and your inner circle, because
I think you're right, because that's all you have to really control.
That's it. And a lot of people are failing at that.
I'm sure I can do better myself. Absolutely. I'll be the first to admit it. I can do better myself. Definitely.
Well, it comes to priorities, Dan. We only have, we talk about this a lot when we're not filming. And I tell you, as I get older, I am less efficient. Okay. In some ways I'm more efficient, but in many ways I can't do as much as I used to do. And I don't want to work like a dog like I used to do. So it means I have to be more intelligent in how I go about things. So instead of having a priority list of 10 items that I'm going down, I now have a priority list of like 3 items. Right? I agree. And if it's not on that list, it doesn't go. And I see so many people, they're like, well, how am I going to get to this list when I have to worry about this? I battle with you on this all the time.
No, I'm guilty.
I'll be like, Dan, what are you doing? It's not even, where's your priorities? It's not on the list. It goes to the bottom of the list.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it has no value, but you can't say that all of a sudden something here and then you put it to the top of the list when it's not really there. Just because somebody's screaming at you.
Yeah, no, I'm guilty of that. I mean, as you get older, you got to realize you got to refine things more. You really got to narrow it down to the top 3 to 5, 5 maybe pushing it. But once you get 7, 9, 12, 15, I'm guilty like the next guy. 17 things on the list. I've been there, believe me. It's like, well, really, do you really need 9 of these things? I could probably cut out half right there, like that, if you really thought about it for a second.
Yeah, and I forget the marketing term. I never remember the official name, but I call it like the law of none. I've told you about this. Is if you overwhelm yourself with too many options, too many of anything,
then nothing gets done.
Then you default to 0.
Very
like when somebody like, what would you like to drink? What are my options? You have Coke, Pepsi, tea,
No, you're right. I think, what do the marketing guys say? Anything beyond like 3, you really should give 3 tops.
2.
Okay.
That's why you'll always hear we have Coke or Pepsi. We have coffee or tea.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
We've got
it really narrows it down, but you're right. If you rattle off literally 7 things, 9 things, that's when people get into like equation mode. Like,
yeah, it's always an either or.
Yeah, either or really narrows the scope.
And so that's why I created that list, that I've talked to you for years about, because, when you go through transitions in life, one of the difficult things is trying to figure out how you want to live the rest of your life. Because a lot of people, transitions can be difficult. And so sometimes breaking it down simply. And that's why, for me, number one, it's great weather. That is my most important thing. So being in this weather where it's 42 degrees and rain, this is my least favorite weather. It's terrible.
It 42 today where you're at?
It was this morning. It's now 55. And then it comes down to, the rest of my list. We don't need to discuss it.
No. The point is you got to have your priority list, top 3, 4 things, whatever, right?
Then you know where to put your time and energy. Then you know what your priorities are. Right.
Yep.
Now, realistically, I'm not the greatest Christian in the world, but I do try to live. I do believe in Jesus Christ. I do try to focus on the end game, and the end game is salvation. Right. I try not to get caught up in the minutia because it's not going to matter someday. That's why people will say, "Hey, Dave, how you doing?" And I'll be like, "I'm breathing," because it's the basics. And I could be doing more. But
well, and the truth is, we all can. You're not alone. You can always do more. But then the question is, what is more, and sort of why?
Well,
what's the purpose other than more?
Right. Well, you see these people, and that's why I try to focus on you, my family, inner circle. Those are the people I try to help. And so those people in my inner circle, as you can attest to, I have put my time and my energy into helping those people the best I can.
Right.
That's where I put it. If some stranger needs help, maybe I'll help, maybe I won't, depending on the circumstances. But again, it comes down to how much can you do. And so, and that's one reason why we do these videos, Dan, because for me, and I think you're the same, it's one way that we can take the energy that we're putting out discussing this. Maybe it will help somebody else. Maybe it won't, but that's what we're doing, is we're doing it in our attempt to help somebody else work through these same issues. And maybe it will help them.
Yeah.
And if it did, great. If it doesn't, so be it.
That can be the beauty of technology / social media. That's one of the benefits. Kind of help your. It's another tool or impetus to, kind of help your fellow man. That's a good thing, right? We're supposed to help each other at the end of the day. We're supposed to be good to each other at the end of the day. Now, I suppose you could challenge that and say, "Oh, really? Okay, well, was that written? Who says so?" Well, without getting into that, just in general, don't you think, without getting religious, that it's just good to perform good deeds, to support each other? I mean, don't you, when you help somebody, I know I do, if I can help somebody in any way, shape, or form, I feel good about that afterwards, right? I feel like I did a good deed, right? I feel like I threw some positive vibes at that moment into the universe as opposed to otherwise, right?
Well,
I can only speak for myself. I would prefer to do that than otherwise. Do you want to wear the white hat or do you want to wear the black hat? I tell my kids that all the time. Or the good guy hat, the bad guy hat, whatever. It's your choice. You have choice.
What do I always tell you about the airplane analogy, though?
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. You got to take care of yourself first. On the surface, it may sound,
Right? When the
you're
oxygen mask drops down, what do they tell you on the plane?
yeah, you got to put it on yourself first. Absolutely. And there's truth to that. On the surface, it may sound selfish, but actually there's a lot of practicality to that. If you take care of yourself, actually, besides taking care of yourself, you might be doing it not just for yourself, but for ultimate purposes, meaning for those around you as well that you care about, right? Because you're right. If you're a freaking mess, if you're a disaster, if you're 150 pounds overweight and blood pressure and unemployed and you can't pay the electricity bill that month, I'm making an extreme example, you're not going to be of much use and service to somebody else. That's just the practical truth. It's not sexy. It's just the practical truth. If you're that much of a mess, how can you be a benefit to anybody else, even if you want to help them?
Well, how many people put all their time, their money, their energy, their resources into their children, and don't put their energy and resources into them and their marriage themselves?
Yeah,
marriage, right?
Yeah, great point.
They think that's the proper priority.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, that is such a misnomer, a mistaught, or whatever the word is, big time, right? Now that I'm older and I realize certain things and I'm a little more, I guess, smarter overall, and if I could fix or do certain things a certain way again I would. But what I would tell young people is, particularly that are getting married or married, is that, the priority is in this order. You put God first, then your marriage, then your children, right? Okay, job is probably got to be somewhere in the top 5, because the reality is we live in a financial world, and you got to make ends meet, at least to a certain extent. But those would be the top 3, right? I think in America, we get it wrong, and the statistics show it. It's like, especially when people get married and have children, the children are first. The children are first. I'm not saying don't care about the children. Of course you do, but they're first, no matter what, at any cost. Oh yeah, we're proven that it's at any cost. Look at the divorce rate on first marriages. It's like 60%, right? The kids wouldn't even exist if it weren't for the marriage and the relationship between the husband and wife. That's what we get wrong, right? So no, you don't put the kids first. No, I'm sorry, the kids don't rule the nest. The 5-year-old doesn't call the shots, or the 12-year-old. The spoiled 12-year-old that wants a $400 baseball bat, like right now, or else they're going to freak out. They don't run the show.
And it just comes to time. I know families that are like, yeah, we have to drive like hours to take Johnny to this hockey game
100%.
in Niagara Falls.
I totally agree. Yeah, that's another thing with traveling teams. I played on so many baseball teams growing up as a kid, but we didn't travel all over the East Coast. My parents didn't drive me anywhere. I can count on one hand how many times they drove me over the years. And I'm fine with that. The coach drove us. We got to one spot. You got in the old whatever station wagon, or you got on the little school bus. It wasn't cool, but everybody didn't show up in their own Tahoes, right? With their own bag of equipment, $1,000 worth of gear, right? That's how it is now. The kid thinks he's pro at 11, right? Shows up in his own Tahoe with his own bag and his own shades. He's got the whatever under his eyes if he's playing ball. It's like, really?
Yeah.
That's how it is now. And you're a bad parent if you don't roll that way.
Yeah,
so
but
I know I sound old school and antiquated, but think of the lunacy of it all.
Yeah, and how many people actually sit down and have dinner together every night?
Nobody. We grew up
that simple goes a long way.
I grew up that way. Every day, like clockwork, at 5:30 or 6 o'clock, all 4 of us sat down after my mother prepared the meal, and we had dinner. It was like clockwork every day. I mean, I know it sounds like Leave It to Beaver, old school, whatever, but that's how it was when we were growing up.
But for most families, there's no reason why that can't be done. And also, it's not one of these things where the family gets together and everybody's on their devices.
But dude, I hear you. The
They're
argument
not really together.
The argument would be time, difference in schedules, And then, oh, by the way, if they did physically somehow, even once or twice a week, manage to get together, then you've got the third issue of what you just said: technology. You've got the phone and
Yeah,
social.
well, as I started the conversation with, it comes down to priorities.
Well, yeah. So what you got to do is, as the leader of the household, you got to tell everybody, give me the cell phones. They're going in the basket here. That basket's going in the corner for an hour. We're sitting down and we're having dinner as a family. And we're going to actually look at each other while we eat and maybe have some conversation and stuff. But that doesn't go on anymore by and large. At least I don't think it does. I'd be willing to bet on that.
Oh, no. My kid texted me and she told me what was going on. Right?
Come on. Okay, great. But when's the last time you...
Yeah. She sent me a video update.
When's the last time you even sat down with the kid, even if, whether it was breakfast or dinner? During the day, lunch is tough. I get it because people are working and kids in school. But breakfast and dinner, or at least dinner, it's not happening, man. It's not happening. So you wonder why we're disjointed, right? You wonder why we can be corralled now as a result.
Well, yeah.
You know,
it's almost like getting married and children. Certain things, it's like a checklist. Okay, check.
Well,
check.
Well, it is, but on the other hand, I can't think of any other way. I mean, that is the family unit. The basic family unit is the building block and foundation of any, at least I think, stable culture or civilization. I mean, it all starts with the family unit.
Well, it comes down to transferring. If you look at families, 50, more than 50 years ago now, back to the 50s, we'll go, the 50s, early 60s, something like that. Whether it's white family, a black family, Chinese, Hispanic, they were stable. They were stable back then for the most part.
Yeah.
Right. You had a mother and a father at home. It was 100%. You did these things. Yeah. It was more homogenous back then. Family.
Absolutely. It wasn't. Yeah. Absolutely. 100%. Now, was it perfect? No. You know, it's funny because there's certain people I talk to that are older than me, particularly in my family, and like, yeah, but you had stuff going on. There was alcoholism, and some of the husbands were beating up on the wives. And I'm like, okay, I'm sure that probably happened, but by and large, you know what I'm saying, right? It was a more stable family unit by and large. Divorce wasn't as rampant as it was, etc. It just wasn't. Right? People weren't married, and I'm not judging anybody. I'm just saying weren't married 4 times and had 5 kids. With
you weren't trying to make your boy into a transvestite girl.
Yeah, that too.
Right? I mean, what's the point?
Yeah, exactly. Well, you know, we have to have a male, a female, a metrosexual, a eunuch, I'm a zero sex, right. I'm a one sex.
Well, where I was going with this, Dan, is in the 60s you had Johnson's Great Society that then started transforming big government replacing daddy. Okay. Yep. Now you had all these social programs where you don't need a father in the house. Okay. And that's why primarily, I mean, whites have been affected, but the black family has been decimated since the 60s. I think, don't hold me to this, but I remember seeing an article online, and I think it was like 80% of children in black households now are born out of wedlock.
Is it that high?
Yeah.
Really?
And whites,
that high.
whites are pushing higher too. I mean, I want to say it's like 50% or 40. Think about all the people who are having kids and they're not married.
Oh yeah, it's commonplace now. It's commonplace. And you could argue, well, you're antiquated, man. Well, what do I got to be married for? Well, okay, I don't know what to say to that. I just think, when you get married,
we don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but I'm just stating that if you talk about the basic funding foundation, the building blocks, then obviously when things start falling apart, sometimes like in Jenga, when you pull the blocks out, sometimes when you pull a piece, it falls over immediately, but sometimes it takes a couple moves, right? Sometimes you have to pull out 3, 4, 5 pieces before the tower tips over.
That's a great point.
And now we're getting to the point in our country where, as I've said to you, I said the proof's in the pudding is, you can look around and you see really a lot of problems that are, they're never going to be addressed because what they do is they put one problem on top of another problem.
I agree.
Live long and prosper.